Welcome to our 267th weekly office hours webcast. Now, please keep typing your questions. Now, I want to talk about three things before I take your questions. Number one, how to protect your money from a massive loss. The second topic is how to massively reduce the risk that you get fired from any company and how to get a raise or a promotion. And the third of three topics is what is the one quality that many billionaires have in common that makes the best investors want to invest in them, and why your biggest perceived weakness is actually your biggest strength. And I'm also going to teach you very quickly how to create unstoppable confidence so that you can take your career to the next level. So topic number one, how do you protect your investments so you don't lose a lot of money very quickly? Well, what you can do is you can use options. And protecting your investments with options allows you to protect your investments kind of like an insurance policy. For example, I have a life insurance policy that costs me this much per month. And God forbid, if something happens to me, then my family will get a very large amount of money that is way bigger than the small amount that I pay for the insurance every month. And I'm actually worth more dead than alive. Similarly, with options, you can buy a put that will protect your long position, meaning the stock that you own. And if the stock goes down in a given period of time, the put option goes up big time in value. And if the stock goes up, then all you lose is the amount of money that you spent on the put. And when you buy a put to protect your long position, this is actually called a married put. So what I want to do is I want to switch over here to Yahoo Finance. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you more details on a put with stock Moderna, which is a big biotech company. mRNA. Go. Okay, great. Excellent. All right. So right now, Moderna is trading at around $105 per share. And let's say that you knew Moderna was going to host an investor call or release earnings in the next month, and you wanted to protect your long position, meaning portfolio insurance. So options, and the way you know, by the way, that a company has options is you click on options data right here. And if you see data behind it, then the company has options. And so options have expiration dates, and the dates of expiration are usually on Fridays. So let's select the expiration date here of Friday, April 19th. Now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down. Let me try that again. Okay, so fun doing these things live. Let me hit refresh. I know for a fact they have options there. All right, so let me try it again. All right, April 19th. Okay, good, it works now. Great. So let's scroll down now to puts. Okay, great. And right here we see the strike price. Okay, and what the strike price means is that if the stock goes down below a certain price level, then it's going to make money, more or less. So if we scroll down, we see down here that the strike price is at 106, which is above the current stock price. 106 and above are in blue. And this means that these put options here are in the money. And so again, you can purchase a put to protect your long position, and this is called a married put. Let me get back to big Chris mode here. Hey there. Now, many people that work for tech companies have over 90% of their net worth tied up in stock in the company they work for, including shares that employees are not yet allowed to sell, meaning stock options. So what these people do is they buy puts to protect their net worth. And I want you to please be careful with options and practice a lot with a paper portfolio first. And you can use Think or Swim and open that up and use it as a paper portfolio. Schwab now owns that. It used to be owned by TD Ameritrade. One more thing. Please don't ever, I'm begging you, I'm going to get down on my knees here. Please don't ever underwrite options, meaning sell them, because you can lose much more money than you invested if you are randomly assigned. And what assignment means is if somebody bought a similar option from somebody else, similar to the one you sold, you could be forced to buy it back from them at a much higher pricing point. Do a search on random assignment if you want to. All right, let's move on now to topic 2 of 3, and please keep typing your questions. How can you reduce the chance that you're going to get fired? And how can you get a raise or a promotion? Well, a way to ensure that the probability of you losing your job decreases is to do the following. Every 3 months, I want you to ask your boss if they have a few minutes to grab a coffee. Then if true, you can start with this. I really enjoy our team, and together we've accomplished a lot, and I'm so proud of our accomplishments. I want to ask you what I can do to add more value to our team, and also what additional value I need to add to be considered for a promotion or a raise. As you know, it's very expensive raising a family, and I want to provide my family with the best standard of living. And what you want to do is you want to bring a notebook, of course, and write everything down that they tell you. And feedback is crucial. And if you're worried about being let go, then a quarterly meeting like this can really help you a lot. Also, closed mouths don't get fed. So based on what you write down, later on that year, when your boss congratulates you on a job well done, then you say, thank you. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee. Then you start the meeting again with something like this, if true. As a team, we've accomplished so much. And earlier this year, we sat down and I humbly asked you what I need to accomplish in order to be considered for a promotion or a raise. And as you know, it's very expensive raising a family here. And I'd love to ask you, please, for a promotion or a raise. Okay. Now, if they say not yet, then ask them what additional value you can add to the team. And the secret is this. Everyone around you that's in a more senior position than you are in have asked likely a few times to be promoted. You just don't see it. It's done behind closed doors. In fact, if you're frustrated at why other people around you are making more than you or getting promoted faster, it's probably because they ask multiple times. And if you want anything in life, you have to ask. And working in a company is not like school where you keep your head down, you get good grades, and life works out well. You need to ask, and you need to remind your boss of your accomplishments. And asking for feedback is so important because many managers got to that level because they're very good at skill X, like programming in a tech firm or trading in a finance firm. Yeah, they might be good at skill X, but they might not be very good at managing, which is why you need to manage up and be self-promotional. And there are ways to brag about your accomplishments in a meeting. Start with the team stuff. We've accomplished a lot as a team. Okay, that messaging. Then brag, and you can even look down by saying, I've humbly done X, Y, and Z. Now, this is crucial. Crucial. I can't believe I didn't mention this yet. Wow. If you go out for a coffee with your manager and the bill arrives, please do exactly this. Oh, look at me. I have alligator hands. I can't find my wallet. Also, T-Rex can't do push-ups. Okay. All right, dude, I made it 9 minutes into this webcast without bad dad humor. But companies often cut into muscle and not just fat when firing. They really overdo it. And another way to ensure that you don't get let go is to find mentors or Yodas in your company and sit down with them once a quarter and ask them for feedback on how to progress, as each company has a completely different corporate culture. Now, the most important mentor you might have is your boss's assistant, because they've likely worked with your boss at multiple companies. And they know how decisions are made, and they'll be so happy to mentor you if you ask. Asking you'll receive, it's prophetic, has been true since the beginning of time. Now, additional ways to ensure job security. And I hate saying this, but early on in your career, face time matters. Be first in and last out, FILO. Also, don't ever trust anyone at work if you want to leave. Like, don't tell anyone, that you might want to leave and do an MBA because they can let this slip if there's a round of cost cuts coming, or if they're out with their buddies and they're doing a little bit too much of this. Also, if you work in sales at a company and get promoted, please, 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 please keep at least one large customer that you can manage. Because the last people to be let go are the people that have great customer relationships. In fact, try to be even more resourceful to helping the company sell more in order to retain your job when cuts occur. Now, my uncle worked at General Electric for years. And when I started working, he said this to me: Chris, I want you to be a nice, dumb guy, which is easy for me to do. But I really had no idea what he was talking about back then. But now I do. Because you don't want to gossip at work, and you don't ever want to go over your boss's head, and you don't want to appear as a threat to your boss, or they might think they hired their assassin. I hate corporate politics. All right, topic 3. What is the one quality that many billionaires have in common? And how can you boost your confidence? So many billionaires have a chip on their shoulder. And for them, it's not just about money. It's about proving the world wrong. And Elon Musk was beaten up a lot when he was a kid. As a result, Elon is not just about making money. He wants to prove something. And if you haven't yet read the Walter Isaacson book on Elon Musk, please get it. Get it on Audible. It's 20 hours. I just finished it. It's great. Now, when I worked in venture capital, we invested in a company where Sequoia led the A round and we led the B round. And I had a board seat on the company. As a result, I got to spend time one-on-one with Doug Leone from Sequoia. Now, the top 10 venture capital firms in the world have 1% of their investments as unicorns, meaning companies worth over $1 billion. And Sequoia has 5% of their investments in unicorns. And I asked Doug, why are you so successful at Sequoia? Why is Sequoia always beat everybody else by 500%? And he explained to me that the jockey is more important than the horse, meaning the entrepreneur is more important than the business model. And so I asked Doug, what kind of people do you invest in? And he told me, and I'm going to butcher this explanation, pardon me, but he told me that the people that kill it as entrepreneurs had something happen to them earlier in their lives that maybe leads them to believe that they have to prove people wrong, meaning a chip on their shoulder. And these are the best founders to invest in because, like Steve Jobs, they want to put a dent in the universe and not sell their company for a couple million or even a couple $100 billion. So how can you embrace your perceived weakness and build unstoppable confidence? Well, the first thing you have to do is keep in mind the following chart. This is my favorite chart in the world. I know I mentioned it before, but it's so damn important. It fixes everything. All right, I have to talk a bit loud because the microphone's over there. So on this chart, you've got your age on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, you've got give a darn. When you're younger, you're down here. You have meltdowns in restaurants. You don't really care what people think. And then when you're older, over here, you also don't care what people think. Older people don't have confidence problems. The problem is this, okay? When you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and later sometimes, you're up here. You give a darn what people think of you. And I want you to stop this self-sabotage. I want you to get rid of this triangle of despair. And I want you to live at this level for the rest of your life. Okay? Don't care. I'm not saying be rude or disingenuous, but stop beating yourself up in your head by thinking what other people think of you. And the best entrepreneurs live at this level. You know, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, etc. Stop the self-sabotage, please. And I say it with love in my heart. So confidence is everything in your life. And nobody is smarter than you. And perception becomes reality. It's like the Rodin sculpture. I think, therefore I am. Now it's time for your homework. In addition to eliminating that triangle of despair, I want you to get a piece of paper and a pencil right now. Please pause me until you have that pencil and a piece of paper handy. Okay. Now, in order to eliminate self-sabotage, I want you to write this down, please. I don't care about X 10 times. Okay? For example, and when you meet me in real life, I'm a tiny man. Okay? I don't care about X. For example, I don't care that I'm 52, man-child, and I still play video games. And by the way, when GTA 6 comes out in 2025, I am not going to be teaching or doing these public webcasts for at least a month until I finish GTA 6. Write it down 10 times. I don't care about X. Like, I don't care that I have the most obvious hair dye. Or and I've been gray since my 20s. Or I don't care that my nose is ginormous because I can beat anybody in a ski race. Because this thing is really aerodynamic. See? Yeah. 10 times, please. And remember this. Okay. Oh, this quote's great, man. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. You got one shot at this. All right. So I want you to follow your passion, fail a lot, and don't care what people think of you. In your dreams will come true, and the money will follow accidentally. It always does. Let me get to your questions now. Okay. All right, and let me increase the font size here because the older I get, the better I was. Great. All right, let's do this, man. All right, so let me kick it off with Jose. And by the way, if you post questions several hours before the webcast, I actually don't see them. But I had a question earlier about what are your thoughts on the federal rate decision and the FOMC meeting recently. So it's the best case scenario for stocks and investing in general, because the Federal Reserve basically signaled to the marketplace that, yes, they're going to cut rates 3 times this year as expected, and GDP growth this year and next year, meaning revenue for the country, is better than expected. In fact, a couple months ago, the Federal Reserve said that they were expecting 1.4% GDP growth this year in 2024. Now they're saying 2.1%. And next year, they were expecting 1.8%, and now they're expecting at least 2%. So it's all good. And I'm sure you saw this morning that Switzerland is the first major economy to cut rates, and the Bank of England kept rates as is. And of course, we know Japan is starting to raise rates for the first time since 2007. All right. So Jose wrote, good morning, Chris. Good morning. When investing in ETF, where is the best platform to buy the stock? Robinhood, Webull, or Public? Yeah. So I recommend going through your bank. And so regardless of what country you live in, I want you to find out what the 5 biggest banks are in your country. And then call up all 5 of them and say, hey, do you have a brokerage department where I can trade stocks? And they'll usually transfer you. And then ask what the fees are. And whichever one has the lowest fees, use those. Yeah. Okay. They're much safer than using Robinhood or others. Yeah. All right. And if you want a good source for ETFs, you can also go to ETFDB. That's etfdatabase.com. Let me turn the air conditioning on here. It's getting hot. All right. Yolanda, how are you? Look, Yolanda graduated from my my Platinum MBA degree program a couple of years ago. It's great to see you. Let me put that little thing down there. Okay, that's old. All right, I was going to put something on the bottom there. Let me just get rid of that. Okay. See, I told you I'm having senior moments. Oh, for crying out loud, let me try to even get rid of that. Hold on a second. Okay, there it is. Okay, great. So our early bird special for our 9th annual Gold and Platinum MBA program is ending very soon. You can go to this web link here to learn more. Yolanda, great to see you. You're from Texas. I remember that. You wrote, one of my goals this year is to keep in contact with you on a regular basis. Thank you. It's great to see you. And then if you want to do that, what you can also do is I have a brand new program that I've actually sold a bunch of. I'm pretty excited about it. And so if you go here to harounmba.com/FAQ, you can see that in addition to the Silver MBA, which you can start today, you can start today in the Diamond program. And this is what I refer to as the Growth Accelerator, where I give you a ton of one-on-one hours and a customized curriculum to help you, achieve all your goals. You can always click this button here to book a call with me. All right, let me get back to big mode, Chris. Your question is about Wendy's plan for surge pricing. What's your opinion on this? Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I'm a big proponent of charging higher in certain markets. And if you want, what you can do is go to the Economist website and do a search for Big Mac purchasing numbers. And there's a great analysis they've done over the past couple decades of how much McDonald's charges for Big Macs in different markets. You can use something like that to help you understand what to price your products at in different markets. And if you have an online business like I do, you can certainly price differently based on the IP address. Yeah. All right, Manas, how are you? You wrote, good morning, my dear mentor. Chris, please. What a week. And by the way, news for you now this week. You wrote, so one of my newest courses on AI and ChatGPT is now a hot and new thing on Udemy. Thanks to you for all your support. The Haroun Education Family Ventures Family rocks. Congratulations. Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah. And by the way, if anybody wants to teach, let me know. I'm happy to humbly help you. And by the way, if you want to teach something similar to what I teach, business, finance, personal development, then what you can do is you can go to Udemy, go to my courses, and look at all the one-star reviews, of which there's plenty. And read what's negative about my courses, and then make better versions of the course. And this is part of what I refer to as educational Darwinism. I love it because the learner wins in the long run. That's why we're all here. All right. And Rahul wrote, how are you, Chris? Lots of love from India. And thank you so much for that donation. That will go directly to Project Magoo. We're now building our next school in Kenya. And I'm going to build 1,000 of these schools. And I can get the cost down to 100,000 per school. So that means 1,000 times 100,000 is $100 million. I don't know how the heck I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do that within 10 years. So what I just did there was I set a goal and a deadline date, and I vocalized it. So that puts pressure on me in a good way to get it done. And I want you all to also vocalize your goals and set deadline dates. And people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the third week of January. 90% of people do. Because they don't set a deadline date. Set that deadline date and be vocal about it. And if I was a quota-carrying sales rep, I'd be fired so many times. Okay. At least I'm honest. Transparency builds trust, eh? Okay. And then Nathan wrote, are you still putting your Python course on Udemy? Yes. Yes, actually, it is on Udemy right now. You can go there and check it out. Yeah, we just hit the publish button. Yeah. Okay. And the next course that I'm working on is a real estate course that's going to come out this fall. There, another deadline date. Now I got to get it done. All right. And then Pranav wrote, is life fun on the Wall Street or hectic? Yeah. It's hectic if you're just chasing money. You know, if you chase money, you'll lose your money and your dreams. You got to do it because you love doing it. And anytime you want to change careers or get a job in a certain market, before figuring out how to do it, I want you to ask yourself, why? Why do I want this job? And if it's only about the money, then you're going to crash and burn. I say it with love my heart. And a lot of my students want to become investment bankers, but they don't know what that entails. They think, hey, I'm going to make way more money than my peers. Well, you know what? You make the same amount of money as your buddies do, but you work a gazillion more hours. And you sacrifice your health in order to try to gain wealth. And it's a miserable existence. Yeah. And I could talk more about that if you want me to. Okay. And you got to be long-term focused when you invest. Otherwise, you'll be miserable as well. Because a lot of times stock, and this is why trading is a bad business philosophy. And this is why we cannot name any successful traders. If you know any that have been successful for decades, let me know. You got to be an investor. You got to be long-term focused, always. You know, as Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. You know, do your research on stocks and don't care about volatility. Pick your target price and then tell yourself, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. And if you invested in Coca-Cola when it went public many years ago, it was down 50% after the first year. And if you didn't sell and you held it till now, you'd still have a fortune. So anyway, in my courses, I provide you with all the templates that you need to become a better investor. Let me show you an example, actually. Let's go over here. See if I have it open. Let's go to Excel Hell. Here we go. Yeah. So one of the many templates I provide you with in my MBA degree program is this, where I ask you 700 questions and you analyze companies from a qualitative, quantitative, and financial research perspective. I help you build your financial model and value the company as well. And each tab has got a video you can click on to understand how to use that tab. And there's 3 outputs from this. Number 1, there is a dashboard. This is just dummy data in here. But there's a dashboard. And in the dashboard, I give you a visual representation of all the information that you entered. The next output is a 100 to 150 page research report. And the third or threeth, as my son Andrew used to say, is a 1-page executive summary. Again, this is dummy data that has fundamentals, valuation, and technicals. You can always print this, put this on the back of your resume if you want to, if you're doing an informational meeting with investment management firm. Okay. All right. Next up, Manas wrote 3 cuts this year, 75 basis points, 25 of it each one. Yeah. Will the market peak? Is it already priced in? By the way, this month the market had been down after a dozen months. It's awesome. Yeah. I don't know the path, but I know the destination. And you can't try to, you got to be very long-term focused. If you look at the S&P 500, and by the way, when I'm not sure where to put my money, I always put it in the VOO, ticker VOO, which is an incredible ETF. Do your research first. That represents the 500 stocks in the S&P 500, meaning the U.S. economy. And if you look at the historical chart of the S&P 500, it goes up, 15% per average. Some years it's up more, some years it's down way more. But it looks like this. Think about how nutty it is trying to watch that all day long. Just buy and hold. In fact, in the United States, you can put, I think it's like 22 grand or so into your 401k or retirement savings. And if all you did was you took that amount and you put it into the S&P 500, meaning VOO, after you do your research, then what would happen is in 20 years, you'd have over $1 million. If your spouse did it as well, you have over $2 million. And if you maxed out your educational savings, which is, I think, about 15 or 16K per year, which is tough to do every year, then in 18 years, you'd have 700K for each kid. So that's over $4 million right there. Plus, if you own your own house, you're going to be laughing, all by being long-term focused. And the great thing about educational savings accounts for your kids is they can take that money out tax-free, as my son is doing right now, for university. He's at Berkeley in his second year, just finishing his second year. And if he wants to buy a house, that's how we say in Canada, if he wants to buy a house one day, he can take money out of that savings account. But he'll have to pay tax on that because it's not for education. Be long-term focused. All right. Next up, I have got here Meet the Requirements, who wrote, I'm interested in starting a crypto hedge fund. Cool. Generally, do I need a Series 7 to start a hedge fund, even if it is a trading fund? What would be a sizable track record before one starts a fund? Yeah. So what I recommend you do, it's so funny you mentioned that because last week, so I do a vlog every Friday, and every Friday it's based on lessons, finance lessons from the TV show Billions. So what you can do is you can go directly to my YouTube page, obviously you know where it is, and watch the vlog that I published, the most recent one, okay? This one right here, how to start a hedge fund. Because it's 25 minutes and I tell you everything you need to know, or a lot of stuff you need to know. Okay. Yes, track record is important. I'd say at least a couple of years. Yeah. In terms of Series 7, you have to talk to a securities lawyer, and which I talk about in that video. And the securities lawyer is going to tell you how to be compliant with FINRA, which might involve taking multiple exams. Yeah. All right. Now, when you start your fund, it's really important to show that you have an investment process, similar to what I just showed you, that Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. All right. Next up, what happens with Y Combinator? Let's assume your startup HEV vendors gets funded. What's the next step, please? Yeah. Yeah. So I'll never accept any capital for my company. As you know, I don't have advertising on my channel. I am true and pure to my student always. Yeah. Once you accept investors, then you get influence to do things that aren't in the best interest of your customers. Now, Y Combinator, for those of you not familiar with it, is one of the best incubation firms in the world. So before you get money from venture capitalists, a lot of times what you do is you join an incubator. And there's a couple notable ones that are pretty good. There's Y Combinator, which Dropbox, I think, came out of, so did Airbnb. There's Techstars, and Y Combinator is in the Bay Area. Techstars, which is in Colorado. And there's 500 Startups, which is here in the Bay Area as well. And there's also a plug-and-play tech center that is all over the world, founded by my friend Saeed Hamidi. So they'll help you grow your business. Maybe they'll take 5 or 10% of your company, give you a couple $100K, whatever it is. Then what happens is if you have a good business model and if you can sell, then you approach venture capital firms. And these incubation firms like Y Combinator will help you with introductions. And then you do the first round, which is the A round from a certain venture capital firm. And then when you run out of money and you have to create a financial model, which I teach you in my MBA program, you have to create a financial model, show them your use of proceeds and why you're going to lose money initially. Then once you run out of money, maybe a year or two later, you do the B round. Then the year later, the C round, rinse, lather, repeat until you go public if you do. All right. But early on when you start a company, man, like never get a bank loan because banks are chicken. And if you fail, they'll take your company away. And obviously talk to a lawyer first and register your company. So the best way to raise capital initially is from high net worth investors. And I've humbly raised and managed over $1 billion in my career. And I know that when you start a company, the sales cycle talking to high net worth investors is very short. You're talking to a decision maker. Always talk to the decision maker. The sales cycle for venture capital firms is really, really long. Always start with high net worth investors. And to learn more about this, you can download a book for free from my website. Just go to harounmba.com. And then scroll down to the very bottom of my homepage. And then you can download this book called Networking to Get Customers, a Job, or Anything You Want. It's free. Okay. All right. Next up, Eric wrote, "Hey, Chris, hey. I'm interviewing for a financial analyst job. One major task is building financial models that compare different capital structures to facilitate employee ownership buyouts. Is this like building an LBO model?" Yeah, it sounds like you're interviewing at a private equity firm. Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. What you can do is sign up for my MBA program. If you want, you can use that template I provide you with, which will help you a lot with your interviews. Yeah. And I always recommend bringing a write-up to all interviews, even if it's not a finance interview. You know, when you go into these interviews, what you want to do is you want to think about, how can I help this person? And people are usually motivated by 3 things in business. Number 1, they want to get a promotion. Number 2, they want to make more money. And number 3, they want to enjoy what they do. So like Sun Tzu in The Art of War, every battle is won before it's been fought. So I want you to be preemptive and prepare by going to these meetings, these informational interviews even, with multiple one-page write-ups to help people with their business. You can even have a write-up on, if you're meeting with somebody in HR, on a really cool new AI app that they can use to cut expenses. You can use finance write-ups, of which I have tons. You can also use qualitative write-ups if you're interviewing for a consulting firm. I have write-ups for everything, and I have templates for everything for you as well in my MBA degree program. Check it out. Manas wrote, "T-Rex can't do push-ups, but they can buy Bitcoin." That's right. That's right. Well, dude, I got to tell you, man, Bitcoin, now you're allowed to buy Bitcoin with ETFs. That is a huge positive catalyst, huge catalyst. And as I've talked about in the past, it's a pain in the neck using one of these wallets to buy Bitcoin. But if you can use ETFs, you're going to buy a lot more. Because at the last second, when you use these things, right when you're about to place your order, because they're so complicated, you're like, dude, I'm going to cut my order in half. Now with ETFs, you can get in and out quickly if need be. I publicly disclose I own Bitcoin. I've owned a lot of it for years. I have an IRA I set up years ago for that as well. Yeah. Never sell it. All right. Next up, Mohammed wrote, "Hey, Chris, this is Asan from Karachi. Great to see you. Your student from your first MBA batch. I remember you. Great to see you." You wrote, "I have a question for you today. My co-founder is overly optimistic and constantly generates great ideas. He reads a lot, but in terms of execution, focus, and discipline, he's very poor. How can I help him strike a balance? Also, we both can become more focused and disciplined. If so, tell me how, please." Yeah, absolutely. So number 1, failing to plan is planning to fail. So regardless of whether or not you already have a company that's running, I want you to write a full business plan. Now, you joined the MBA program 5 years ago in our first year. And what you can do is there's the Venture Capital Bootcamp, and that's in the 3rd semester. So go to E31 through E35. That's Entrepreneurship Semester 3, Class 1 through Entrepreneurship Semester 3, Class 5. And in that Venture Capital Bootcamp, I provide you with this template, which will help you with your go-to-market strategy, your executive summary, all that stuff, and of course, your presentation slides. So you have to be able to, in order to execute, plan accordingly, and look at all the pros and cons, weaknesses, etc., for whatever your business model or initiative within your business model is. And you have to have data. If you can't measure it, you're not going to be able to execute, right? And so make sure it's not just a qualitative pitch. Back it up with your financial statements as well. How is this going to generate revenue? If so, how do I forecast this on my income statement? Maybe it's an additional revenue line item. How profitable is that line item? Yeah. So go to E31 through E35. Yeah. And if you want, you can join my Diamond program as well. Just go to that link and I can tell you more about that. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, Rajco wrote, hey, Chris. Hey, I'm considering enrolling in your Gold MBA program. Thank you. But it bothers me. Could I benefit from it because I live in Serbia and it's a pretty poor country? Thanks a lot. You're doing great work. Yeah. Yeah. So what you can do if you want. So one of my students 2 years ago is Luka Anderson. And he was a platinum student of mine. He lives in Serbia as well. I'm actually going to his wedding there in September. And he's incredible. He benefited a lot from it. And now I teach a lot of courses with him. So you can reach out to him as well. You can also do an advanced search on LinkedIn for people that have graduated from the Haroun MBA program. There's tons of people. And put in Serbia as well, and you'll find a bunch of people. And you can reach out to them and ask them as well. Yeah. Now, the way that I teach is generic enough that it applies to people in every country. I've invested in almost every country in the world. Yeah. Okay. And thank you for that other comment you left there as well. Appreciate it. God bless you. Okay. All right. Next up, Jose wrote, can you provide information on the licensing and certification process required for financial advice? Yeah, in order to be a broker dealer. So you always have to talk to a lawyer. Okay. And you can do this on the cheap by going to LegalZoom.com. I'm not affiliated with them or anybody, but it's the cheapest way to get legal advice. And they will tell you. You know, you never want to just do research on the internet yourself because the rules change all the time. And they'll tell you which certifications you need to get from a FINRA perspective as well. FINRA is a government body that oversees financial services, broker-dealers, etc. Yeah. Probably have to do the Series 3, 63, 7, etc. Yeah, which I wrote 8 million years ago. Okay. Next up, Hassan wrote, thanks for sending the free course, Complete Business Plan. You're most welcome. I appreciate the hard work you put into the course, specifically provide Excel file. You're most welcome. Yeah. What I do is fun. All right. Next up, Muhannad wrote, good morning, Chris. Good to see you. Do you teach SIE or any of the series exams? If not, do you recommend any? No. I just teach based on my real life practical experience. I do not teach any theory. I just teach you what works. Yeah. And the problem with traditional education is that it's very theoretical, you know, and it's why I do what I do. You know, MBA schools, traditional MBA schools, accredited ones, they don't teach you the most important skills in life. They don't teach you how to sell. They don't teach you how to network. They don't teach you how to manage your own money. They teach you how to manage other people's money. They also don't teach you how to present. They don't teach you about AI. They don't teach you about Python. They don't teach you how to program. They don't teach you about every aspect in Excel. I teach all that stuff and much more. Yeah. So I do what I do. And I think in my lifetime, only 50 universities are going to be around. I think most will go belly up. And people will say to themselves, man, I'm not going to go to school. You know, for a 4-year undergrad, it cost me $100K and I learned nothing unless it's a great brand name. Yeah. Yeah. And then Matthew wrote, thank you for having the call. You're most welcome. I'm a realtor. I know where you're going with this. If you have much knowledge about the recent real estate commission settlements, what are your thoughts on the effects of the industry and real estate stocks? I've watched a gazillion TikToks on it, and I don't fully understand it. So, like when I used to work at a big hedge fund called Citadel, my boss used to tell me, Chris, if you can't explain it, you don't understand it, to be honest. But I will understand it when my real estate course comes out this fall. Yeah. it's something along the lines of real estate brokers can make a lot less money, but I don't really understand it. Yeah. All right, Phil, Germany, how are you? From Ohio, I think, yeah. Wrote, hey, Chris, next week I'm taking an AI course taught by Luca on his platform. Looking forward to it. Awesome. Luca is amazing. He's great. Yeah. Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah. And anybody that works in a company, if you need advice on AI, just do a search on Luca Anderson. Okay. Luca Anderson on LinkedIn. And he's got this great company called Data Blues, where he consults to the biggest companies in the world on AI strategies. He's brilliant. Yeah. And he was recently on a big video billboard in Times Square, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Rex S. wrote, is a PPM, LPA, and subscription document and a registration with the Financial Conduct Authority enough to establish a presence in the hedge fund industry? Yeah, there's a lot more to it. You got to talk to a lawyer. The lawyer's going to create an investment offering memorandum. Don't ever invest in anything until you read the investment offering memorandum. And if you can't get an investment offering memorandum for private companies or public companies, don't invest. This here is the S1 for Facebook that went public in 2012. Early this morning, I got up to read the Reddit S1 document as well. I can go into more detail on that if you want. So the lawyer's going to create an investment offering memorandum. They're also going to register your company. Maybe it's a domestic plus an offshore bank. And both of those, it's a master feeder, can feed into your master entity if you want. Watch that video I mentioned before on my YouTube channel for how to start a hedge fund for more details on that. In terms of the subscription documents or subdocs, let the lawyer do that as well. Because the subscription documents basically are 10 to 20 pages that ask potential investors questions to see if they can invest. One of the questions is, are you accredited? Meaning, do you have a certain liquid net worth to invest in a hedge fund? There's also other AML or anti-money laundering stuff that was added to subdocs post 9/11. Yeah, your lawyer will take care of that. Yeah. All right. Next up, Sanjay. Sanjay wrote, "Hey Chris, how are you? I'm always great. Thanks. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well." Okay. What are the advantages and disadvantages of studying science, technology, etc.? I think you're much more marketable if you study portable skill sets in university or online, obviously. And a lot of that is going to change, especially programming. I think AI is going to do a lot of programming for us. But I still think it's important to understand how to become a developer, etc. Yeah. In terms of disadvantages, I guess from a liberal arts perspective, you might not be as cultured. And it's important to study liberal arts. Like Steve Jobs used to always talk about how Apple is at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. So for your electives, make sure you take liberal arts courses like art history, etc. We used to take art history to meet girls. Too much information. Okay. All right. And I sucked at art history. I tried though. Yeah. All right. All right, next up, Sue. Hey, Sue. Sue wrote, hi from South Africa. Good to see you. I have lots of students in South Africa. You wrote, this is the best channel I've ever seen on YouTube. Thank you. I can't get enough of it. Keeps me motivated to do more. Thanks, Chris, and thank you for the heart. And God bless you. Thank you. It gives me the motivation to keep doing what I'm doing. This is week 267. I'm going to be doing this forever. Forever. Yeah. All right. And Mohammed wrote, one more question, as many as you want, please. What do you think of ODTE options? Thanks. Yeah. I don't even know what ODTE stands for. If you're an investor in mine, I'd make something up. I'm just kidding. I'd never do that. Let me do a quick search. ODTE. It's in the game. I don't even know what this means. 0 days until expiration. Okay, the option you're trading today will function and expire as soon as market close. Oh, that's short-term focus. No, not a fan. And the reason I'm not a fan of that is because that's a very short-term focused day trading investment. And when it comes to investing in stocks or options, you got to be long-term focused because the market's only open 20 days per week, right? That's 20 weekdays. And stocks go up and down in a short amount of time because of geopolitical and random stuff that you can't predict. It's maddening. Like, what is the Federal Reserve going to say tomorrow? Or what is NVIDIA going to release at their next investor conference? Or a company similar to the one that you own just missed earnings that drags down the stock that you own. Just be long-term focused. And the best way to do that is to use my financial models and come up with a target price that's in 5 or 10 years. And then just buy and hold or buy in homework. Listen to the earnings call every 3 months and update your financial model, which I teach you in my MBA program. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Phil wrote, I'm looking for a job in AI. How will a one-page write-up help? Yeah. So depending on what company you're interviewing for, and I'll make this a generic answer to apply to everybody, you can always do a search in Google and find AI products that are based on ChatGPT, of which there's tons. And when you go to your interviews, you can show a couple of examples of these AI products, bring your laptop or write them up on a one-pager to show them how to enhance their business. For example, you can show them chatbots that you've implemented before. And I know you're taking courses with Luca. His specialty is customized chatbots. His business is exploding in that area. Right? And so chatbots can certainly help you to cut costs materially, regardless of what company it is. And depending on who you're interviewing to work at or work for, there's plenty of other ideas as well. If you want, I know you're an MBA student of mine. If you go to the last lecture of your MBA degree program, I've added a number of AI courses to help you think about how to add value using AI in all industries. And that can help you think about how to crystallize the thought process when it comes to your one-page write-ups. Yeah. Okay, and ask Luca the same question, because he's smarter than me, even though I'm very well read. Okay. Carolyn, how are you? Carolyn lives in Nova Scotia now. She bought an investment property there. She's killing it. It's gone up a lot in value too. Good to see you. Okay, Mr. Vicky wrote, hey, Chris, is it worth it for a retail trader to use mathematical models to trade? Yeah, I say this with love in my heart. Please don't be a trader. Be long-term focused. And you can use the templates I showed you earlier today, the Excel templates, in order to come up with long-term target prices. Yeah. If you can figure out how to leverage AI in order to make money, that's great. I'll give you an example. So Jim Simmons, who used to work at the NSA, in the early 80s, he left the NSA and he started Renaissance Technologies. And Renaissance Technologies has been using AI since the 80s. It's a big hedge fund. And since the 80s, their gross adjusted annual return on average is 60%. That's the exception though. And nobody knows how he does it. He's got thousands of Linux servers running in parallel, heavily guarded. And it's all based on random data points that he analyzes. And he looks at regression analysis, et cetera. And he only hires mathematicians. He doesn't really hire finance people. It's more mathematicians. I'll give you an example of what he might have in his algorithm. This is a simplistic example. If it's raining a lot, then he'll short restaurant stocks because people don't go out to dinner as often or lunch as often when it's raining, for example. Yeah. Do some research on Jim Simmons and Renaissance. All right. Next up, Life wrote, hi, Chris. Thanks for the hearts. You wrote, the United States just sued Apple for their monopoly smartphone business during election times. Everything was fine before that. What do you think about this as a VC? And thank you for my favorite emoji ever. God bless you. Yeah. Yeah. So Apple has certainly abused their monopoly position. It's not fair that they charge 30%, for every app. And also what happens is, you can't have your own platform, meaning store, within your app. It's not fair. In fact, you'll notice that innovation has died over the past decade on Apple when it comes to cool new apps. When the iPhone first came out, I remember it was so awesome. My kids and I would download really badass new games like Field Runner. Love that game. Every week there'd be new games. And then Apple, what they did a number of years ago was they started a subscription service, which they gave away to you for free, and then they charge you $5 a month. Right? 3 months free for their own game platform. So they're pushing their product on you. It's not fair. Yeah, that's monopoly power and it's abusive. Now, Apple will argue that, hey, they have to charge 30% because they build in so much security and privacy issues into their platform. That's true. And I do trust the Apple brand more than any brand on the planet. However, it's not fair what they're doing to Fortnite and other developers that want to sell their own stuff within their own stores on their platform. Yeah. And so I think what's going to happen is it's so interesting because historically when companies have had this much market power, Antitrust department has broken them up, kind of like the antitrust department wanted to break up Microsoft in the late 90s. But I think it's strategic from a security perspective for the United States government to not break up these companies. However, I have noticed recently that companies like Meta have tried to do small tuck-in acquisitions that have been Heismaned or blocked by the Department of Justice. Small acquisitions, right? That's a new thing. Usually they stop big deals. Yeah. But if you think about it also with Google, Google owns the two biggest search engines on the planet, Google and YouTube. That seems kind of off, right? Kind of seems like those should be separate companies. And Google, I think, knows that. And that's why they rebranded themselves as Alphabet years ago. The same thing with Meta. Facebook renamed themselves Meta, that's M-E-H, Meta, because they might know that one day they could be broken up into Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, etc. Yeah. But it's interesting, especially when you look at what Congress is trying to do to TikTok. If that could set a crazy precedent to the extent that if TikTok is banned, then is WeChat banned as well? Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Scopex wrote, on the topic of traditional education, how would you advise a high schooler who wants to get into finance but is not planning on going to school unless it's one of the top tier schools? Yeah. I would try to aggressively network in order to get an internship. And that's what my son Andrew has done. I'll show you Andrew. This is pretty cool. I'm so proud of my son. So, and he just scored an amazing internship by leveraging his network as well. So what you got to do is step one, and I don't care if you're a high school student or older like me. Step one, you've got to have an incredible LinkedIn profile, right? And everything has got to kind of make the viewer eat, sleep, and breathe and know that you're passionate about finance, including this badass image here of New York, etc. Yeah. And I'm happy to help you. I love this guy. I'm happy. He's like a son to me, I'm happy to help you with your LinkedIn profile, etc. And you could click this link here or check out that link for more details. Yeah. And you got to network like crazy too, especially when you're younger, because people want to take meetings with you. And I don't care how old you are. People will always take meetings with you if you ask. Asking you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. Let's say it's 20 years in the future and you're 20 years more successful than you already are today. And if somebody reaches out to you that is similar to you, maybe they went to the same school as you and they're from the same hometown, and they ask for an informational meeting, would you take that meeting? Of course you would. So asking you'll receive. You got to network a lot. And in general, for everybody in this call, when it comes to getting a job, it's every time you see a job opening online, you got literally a 1 in 250 chance of getting that job. So who gets that job? It's ultimately somebody that knows someone at the company. These are the new rules of commerce. So what you need to do is have an amazing LinkedIn profile, which I teach. And then you need to set up informational meetings with people that work at those companies. Set up 20 or 30 at each company you want to work at. Yeah. And I go into a lot more detail on how to structure the meetings, what to say, what to bring template-wise in my MBA program. Yeah. Your network is your net worth, and relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Okay. All right, next up, Yash wrote, good morning, Chris, from Maryland here. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Just started with your options trading course. I love what you're doing. Thank you for all the awesome resources. Thank you, and God bless you. I appreciate it. Thanks. Okay. And then Phil G. from Ohio wrote, did you ever work for a Gordon Gecko type or a Bobby Axelrod? Ooh. Maybe. I've always been ethical. Always, always, always. Actually, I'll say no. There you go. Yeah. But what I will say is this. If anybody is frustrated working for somebody that is unethical, then frustration is a beautiful thing. And I say it with love in my heart, because that will force you to interview or network like I teach, to get a better job, to work for people that are more ethical. Or it could force you to say, heck with it. That's not a word, Chris. What you can do is say, screw it. I'm just going to start my own company and be ethical. Yeah. But when it comes to unethical people on Wall Street, there's not that many, but they get a lot of publicity, like Madoff. I always knew he was a criminal because his name is Madoff. Because, he made off. All right. And then Rex S. wrote, thank you so much about the hedge fund you're starting. I'll send the documents to the Norwegian lawyer. Yeah. And you might want to consider an offshore bank as well. Just because, and never give tax advice to your customers, ever, your clients. Just because some investors might not want to invest domestically. Like, for example, years ago when I had my hedge fund, I had what's called a master feeder. I had an onshore vehicle for U.S. investors, and I had an offshore vehicle in the British Virgin Islands, BVI. Choose BVI if you're going to do it rather than Caymans, because it's a lot cheaper than Caymans, not as prestigious. And the onshore and offshore vehicle fed into what's called a master feeder structure, your LLC. And a lot of people wanted to invest. Like I had ABN AMRO and tons of international investors that wanted to invest and invested in my offshore fund because they didn't want to be subject to U.S. taxes. Again, never give tax advice, though. Yeah. And always get a lawyer to create all the documentation. Okay. All right. And Bharath wrote, hi, sir. Chris, please. Love from India. More love back to you. Thank you. And 9% of my viewers on my YouTube channel are from India, second biggest market after the United States. Great to see you. You wrote, my main question is how to analyze the world markets for investing in a particular sector and individual stocks. Yeah. So the process I have, I showed this before, it's a 100-step process for investing in companies. You have to analyze qualitative, quantitative things, and then also the financial models that help you create. In terms of global issues, up here I've got government regulation, which you want to look at pretty closely. You also want to look at other government laws as well, which is all in here somewhere. I can't remember where. Yeah. And what you can always do, like whenever you invest in a company or a sector, like take a step back at first and think to yourself this, and look at the forest from the trees before doing a bottoms-up analysis. Think to yourself this. Okay. This company or this sector, is it going to be more relevant or less relevant in 5 years? So if it's AI, it's going to be much more relative, of course. And by doing that, it'll stop you from getting seduced unfairly into buying cheap stocks or value traps, stocks that are cheap for a reason. And when a technology company starts to become a little bit less relevant, it's usually game over. Turnarounds don't work in tech. Of course, there's one per decade, like Apple, last decade in the 90s is IBM, etc. I want you to think long-term always. Then you can do a bottoms-up analysis. And what you can also do is, if there's a certain theme you want to invest in, what you can do is you can go to, let me go here with you, go to etfdatabase.com, okay? And what you can do is you can look at different types of ETFs, okay? And you're like, you know what, I think I want to invest in India. Okay, let me click here. Then what you can do is you can look at the ETFs here. And by the way, if you don't have time to do research on individual companies, then buy ETFs only, okay? But what you can do is you can look at this ETF and say, you know what? I think I want to do research on this ETF, India. So you can look at the holdings. So what is in this ETF here? So you can look at Reliance, do research. If there's financial services exposure here. If you start doing research on these companies, you're like, you know what, I'm not passionate about finance, skip it. You're like, oh, technology services like Infosys, Wipro, Satyam, etc. Start doing research here at Tata as well. There's 8 million companies in India named Tata. Rinse, ladder, you get the idea. Just look through the top holdings and then do a bottoms-up analysis. So say you love India for whatever reason, whatever your investment thesis is. Find an ETF for India, then look at the components of that ETF and start doing research. All right. Next up, Meet the Requirements wrote, any tips for running an EdTech startup and strategically starting a fund after acquisition or exit with education thesis / investment process? Yeah. Okay, so you got an EdTech startup. and also investing in a fund. Yeah. So investors get really worried when you're focusing on two things because execution is really tough. So I would focus on just one thing, make one product and do it well. Either pick the EdTech startup or investing as a fund, for example. Yeah. And if I misunderstood your question, let me know, please. All right. And then Barath wrote, big fan of your charismatic teaching, sir. Always inspired. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so sorry about the awful jokes, but that's okay because you've got a 30-day money-back guarantee in everything I teach. Yeah. And I do repeat jokes. I know I used this one before, but it's so fun. Yeah. It's called dad humor. And when you have kids, that's when dad humor starts. And now my kids they're all teenagers. He's 19, 18. My God, it goes up by one every year. I can't keep track. And 14 going on 40. Yeah. So 3 teenage boys. Yeah. All right. But you use dad jokes when you have kids. And now my kids are like, oh God, rolling their eyes. Yeah. Even my youngest one, Dylan, he was going to the movies the other day. He said, can you drive me to the movies? And I was like, oh, cool. Can I watch it with you? He was like, with his buddies. He was like, broke my heart. That's okay. All right. And I try to be young at heart, too. I say things like dope to impress their friends or groovy, because all kids say groovy these days, right? My kids say, yeah. All right. Next question by Pitt is, what do you think about the stock ABSI? Okay. I don't give investment advice, but I'm going to take a look at it. I don't even know what the company that is. It's got 5 letters in it, which could mean that it's been delisted. Okay. And I'll take a look in a second. I could be wrong on that. But a lot of times when you see a company that has 5 letters, it means there's a problem with the company, and hence it's been delisted temporarily, maybe, from the major markets like New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. I could be wrong on this, and I'll take a look in a second. In fact, if a company is trading below $4 a share for a certain amount of time, it can get delisted. Let me go there and check it out. All right, let's go to finance.yahoo.com. Hi, Tim. Okay, let's go to ABSCI. Okay, so the ticker actually, there's only 4 letters in the ticker. Okay, so ignore that thing I said about 5 things. Yeah, okay, let's check it out. All right, first thing I look at is liquidity and volume. Okay, so the average volume is 1.6 million shares per day. It's at $5. Okay, so say that's, I don't know, $7 million in value per day on average, maybe more. Actually, let me do it. Alexa, 5 times 1.7.
5 times 1.7 is 8.5.
So 8.5, yeah. So it trades $8.5 million per day. What I always do is I take that number divided by 10, and that's the maximum amount you can buy in that stock. So liquidity is not an issue here for you. Okay, unless you're running a massive fund. Yeah, it's not an issue for me. All right, the beta is very high, meaning this is very volatile. And what beta means is it's calculus, the rise over the run. So beta means this. The S&P 500 has a beta of 1. If a stock has a beta of 2, it means when the S&P goes up 1%, this stock usually goes up 2%. And when the S&P goes down 1%, this stock goes down 2%. It's even more so than that. It's very rare for me to see a beta this high. So it looks like this is a very risky stock or very volatile for some reason. Okay, let me see here. All right, so 52-week. So it's had a good run up. Why is the price so low though? I mean, is there a risk they get delisted if the stock drops below $4 for too long? Let me learn more about this company. Okay, this here, let's see here. Okay, it's a biotech. Okay, yeah. Biotechs are very risky and are extraordinarily volatile. Earlier on, we looked at large cap biotech and the options for it, Moderna. Remember that? Ticker mRNA. Okay, so it's a biotech. Biotech stocks are very risky, and I don't recommend them. And this doesn't have a valuation. It's trading at a negative PE. Now, the reason that biotechs are very risky is because the catalyst that makes biotechs go up or down quite often is FDA approval. That's the Federal Drug Administration of the United States, right? They have to approve a drug or a product for a biotech. And if they get approval, the stock goes up big time. If they don't, the stock gets cut at least in half. And so I know a lot of biotech investors. A good friend of mine, Evan McCulloch from Franklin Templeton, out here in the Bay Area. I talked to him about investing in biotechs. Right, he's probably the smartest biotech investor in the world. Let me see if I can find his profile for you, and I'll tell you what he told me. All right, so Evan, here he is. Yeah, portfolio manager at Franklin Templeton, a great friend of mine. Yeah, so Evan. He was, I think maybe he's director of research now. He's moved up a lot. So he led for 23 years the biotech fund at Franklin Templeton, big fund out here in the Bay Area. And he told me that quite often with biotechs, the best investment philosophy is a spray and pray mentality. What does that mean? Well, when it comes to smaller cap stocks, like maybe the one you showed me, instead of investing, in that one company, because you don't know what's going to happen from a catalyst perspective with FDA approval. Maybe invest in a handful of them, or maybe buy a small cap biotech fund, for example, and certainly never make any biotech more than 5% of your portfolio. Have good risk management in place. And if a big catalyst is coming up like FDA approval, then what you can do is you can buy a put. So it's going to be a married put, meaning you have the long position in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever that stock is, and the put as well. So if the stock goes down, the put goes up a lot. If the stock goes up, the put is worthless, but you're protected. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote here, they use AI to create drugs. Okay, that's why you probably saw multiple expansion there. Yeah. All right. All right, next up, Phil G. Wrote, did you know anybody that worked for the Raj guy who's in prison for insider trading? Yeah. I knew a number of people that worked for him. So Raj Rajaratnam, he was the disgraced portfolio manager and owner and founder of Galleon. And Galleon was a big hedge fund in New York City. And what he did was he would give out bags of money. He would have his team give out bags of money to people that worked at various companies like Intel and IBM to tell them how his business tracking. And he would trade on that. Now, obviously, that's insider information. And I'll tell you stories in a second about people I knew there. But what he also did was he was great friends with Rajat Gupta, who was the CEO of McKinsey. And Rajat would be at a board meeting of a publicly traded company, and he would leave the board meeting and he'd call Raj and provide insider information, so Raj would trade on it. And the FBI were tapping those phone lines. So Raj is a criminal. He went to jail. He's now out. Once criminal, always a criminal. Because in jail, he was caught bribing again. He bribed some jail official 90 grand to be nice to him in jail and got caught for that. So once a cheater, always a cheater. In terms of stories I have about Raj, yeah. So I actually, when I worked in the hedge fund industry, it was back, I think it was in 2004. I was in Miami at a conference. I had dinner with him, and we shared a ride back in his stretch limo to the hotel. We were at the same conference. And he was giving me advice on, starting a company, et cetera, which was great. I could tell he was a little bit shady, so I kind of kept my distance. But I had friends that worked for him that invested in software stocks. And I remember talking to them, and they said, it's so stressful here. I was like, why? And they would say, well, in the morning meeting, Raj asked me, how's the quarter going? And I would say to him, well, as I told you yesterday, the quarter is going well, based on channel checks, whatever. And then he would say, no, how's the quarter going as of this morning? And what he would do is in the morning meeting before the market opened, it's kind of like Gladiator with Joaquin Phoenix. He would get two analysts that have different opinions on a stock, like Microsoft. And he put them in a pit in front of him, like he throws weapons at them. And he watched them argue. And then he'd decide who's right. It was really stressful. And my buddy that was a software analyst there as well said that the second that a company would report earnings, the traders would yell at him. How is deferred revenue? How is bookings? It was really stressful. And the hierarchy there went, it was different from other hedge funds. It went Raj, portfolio managers and traders, and then analysts down here. It was a tough place to work. And I remember talking to my friend that worked there. And I said, well, why is it that people break the law? And he said, well, it's really expensive in New York. I live in the Upper West Side. I have good standard of living. My kids are in preschool at 30 grand each. And so what happens is if you don't live below your means, then it could influence you to compromise your integrity. Yeah. So always live below your means. Always, always, always. Yeah. And I had another friend that was tied into all of that as well. And so what happened was a friend of mine, I was in the training program with him at a big investment bank years ago. And he joined a fund that did business with Galleon. And he got caught. And he called me up. And he said, Chris, can you write a letter to the judge for me, please? And I was like, yeah, of course, man. I'm there for you. Everyone else runs away. You find out who your real friends are when you do something wrong. And I've never done anything wrong. Yeah. In finance. Yeah. Other aspects of my life, I certainly have. And so I told him, yeah, for sure, dude. I'll write a letter for you. And it's publicly disclosed. You can do a search for it if you want to. And it's one of my proudest moments because I stuck my neck out for him. And I said something along the lines of, he's a minimalistic side. See if we can find that letter. Yeah. And by the way, as a result of not just the letter, but for him cooperating with the government, he didn't have to go to jail. And I think he had to stay home house arrest for 6 months. But he became really good. I think it was GTA Vice City or GTA 4 or something. I can't remember what it was. He played GTA a lot. Yeah. Which is what I'm going to do next year. But let me see if I can find that letter. Okay, let's go here to Chris Haroun, Gautam, Shankar, Goldman. Yeah, right here. Yeah, so it was in Bloomberg. I mean, I wrote the letter for him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he got a lean C bid. Gautam Natona is real. I wrote here, Chris, Gautam and I were in the training programs together at Goldman Sachs. Chris Haroun said, and then if you read this, I say a couple things about him. And I remember when this article came out, I'm not going to pay you, Bloomberg, screw you. Yeah, but when this art, and sometimes what you can do, by the way, is you can just copy this, go into private mode, and then do a search. And from an SEO perspective, it works. Let's see. All right, I'll go to Google. Here we go. Now let's try. Nope, doesn't work. Okay, but anyway, if you subscribe to Bloomberg, you can read that. Let's see here. Maybe it's in this article here. No, it's the same one. You're an idiot, Chris. Yeah. Anyway, you can find it out there. I stuck up for him by saying he's a minimalist and all that stuff. And yeah, I was proud though. All right. Where the hell was I? Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, Phil, I hope I answered your question correctly. You're probably thinking, holy Chris, I asked you for a yes or no question. You gave me an entire encyclopedia. Okay, next up, Mr. Vicky wrote, Chris, what would be a good returns? And if my trading model outperformed returns, would you invest or would you hire me? But I don't have an MBA. Yeah, whether you have an MBA, it doesn't matter. Yeah. All my investment go towards building schools and scholarships all over the world. Yeah. Good returns would be, what was your alpha? So the way the market looks at it is they look at something called alpha. And alpha means how much you outperform a benchmark by. So for example, if the S&P is up 10% 1 year and you were up 11%, you generated 1% or 100 basis points of alpha. So I would say just outperform the markets over several years at least while using good risk management, meaning don't be too long or too short the market. Also, don't make any position more than 5% of capital. And never have more than 20% of your capital in any one sector like healthcare or tech stocks, that sort of thing. And only invest in liquid stocks, etc. Yeah. And you can watch a vlog I published last Friday on that topic if you want. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Satons, who's Mark, who always types in caps, and I love it because you remind me of my grandfather, God bless you. He would always type in caps, but he wasn't yelling at me. But he always used to say, Chrissy, buy land. They're not making it anymore. Mark is based in wonderful Michigan. He wrote, what's up, Global MBA gang and Pro Chris? How are you, man? Brother, are you familiar with salt mines? I just got a contact from the person that owns 2 salt mines looking to export to the U.S. Food Himalayan salt. I'm not. I use salt though in my salad. Yeah, doesn't make me an expert though. But what I would look at is this: if you're not sure how to analyze a commodity, there's 2 things that are positive from an investment perspective. Number 1 is pricing going up and is volume increasing as well. So if pricing is going up for any commodity and volume is going up as well, that's usually a good thing. That's at least how I look at oil companies like Exxon and Petrobras and the drillers like Transocean. Yeah. All right. Tafadza wrote, so Chris, with regards to investing, what would be your advice? If I'm not mistaken, you are saying why trade? Yeah. So my advice is this: just be long-term focused. Don't trade, because you can't make money on a monthly basis. The worst thing that can possibly happen is this: you go to a casino for the first time in your life, you put a quarter in a slot machine, and you win a lot of money. It's not repeatable. And the odds at a casino are probably higher of you winning than they are successfully being a day trader. It's just random. So just be very long-term focused in your investments. Yeah. All right. Renveer from Mauritius, who's one of my silver students, wrote, hey, Chris, what do you think about this strategy? Buy put options right after a short squeeze. How do you think I could improve this strategy? Yeah, it all depends on what the implied volatility is versus the historical volatility. There's a lot of factors. So what I recommend doing is in the MBA curriculum, go to FA 4-4, that's Finance and Accounting Semester 4, Class 4, where I talk about options for 30 hours. And I would look at implied versus historical volatility and all the Greeks as well. Yeah. But I'd be long-term focused. Yeah. And then Renveer wrote, what is the go-to semiconductor ETF? Again, yeah. So for me, it was whenever I needed short beta access, when I worked in the hedge fund industry, it was the SMH. Yeah. I'm sure there's plenty of other ones now. Yeah. But I'm bullish on semiconductors now I own a ton of NVIDIA, done well on it humbly. And I think that from a geopolitical perspective, there's going to be a ton of semiconductor IPOs for the first time in decades. Because, the American government is putting in lots of tax breaks for semiconductor companies. It's very strategic to national interest longer term as well. And when it comes to AI, NVIDIA is not the only game in town. Yeah. Okay. And then Renveer wrote, can you explain payment for order flow with reference to Robinhood and GameStop? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but maybe you're referring to back, I think it was in February of 2021. So in January 2021, GameStop went up 29.4 times. And then Robinhood was influenced to not let people sell their positions or something. Yeah, I know that there was a big scandal that went on. I don't really know the whole story. Yeah. All right, Manasro, by the way, the valuation guy is Aswath Demidorian. Not Demidorian, not Demidorian. Okay. I mispronounced his name on a certain webcast. Yeah. Okay. 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 All right. And then Jahanzeb wrote, how can we calculate the figure of revenue projection for a startup who has no sales and there's close to no information available on the internet with respect to its industry? Yeah, a couple ways. So if it's a startup, there's not really much you can do. If it's a publicly traded company, by law, in the S1 filing when they went public, they have to provide all the financials. And what you might be able to do is look at similar companies or comps to see what their revenue run rate was early in the day for them, early in the life cycle of that company. Or if it's private and you want to consider investing, ask for an investment offer memorandum if they'll give it to you. And if you can't get one of these things for private companies even, skip it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Forte wrote, did you trade credit default swaps at Goldman? No, I did not. I'm not an expert in that area. Yeah. Okay. And then John Zeb wrote, is fundraising process of a nonprofit organization different from that of a company? No, I think it's pretty similar. You sit down initially with high net worth investors, explain the pitch, and ask them to invest. Obviously, I'm dumbing it down there a little bit for my purposes, but you still want to bond before business and create a slide deck that's 10 to 12 slides, and always use the Airbnb pitch deck. And if you want, watch the vlog I published last Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time for details on the Airbnb pitch deck, which is applicable to not-for-profits as well as for profits. Yeah, it's the gold standard. Yeah. All right. All right. Muhanad wrote, Chris, I took your options course, your stocks, and your cryptocurrency course. Love them all. Thank you. It's obvious that you love teaching and you're an amazing instructor. Thank you. You wrote, what course do you recommend afterwards? Yeah. I recommend my MBA degree program, right? And I've got silver, gold, platinum, and now a new diamond program. You can go to this web address here to learn more about it. In all the MBA programs, there's over 100 hours of brand new lectures just about finance. And I'm constantly adding new stuff to the curriculum, as well as how to use ChatGPT to create financial models and invest. Yeah. All right. And then Red, oh my God, Radu, how are you? It's been years, man. Great to see you. I remember you have a massive heart. It's been about a year or two since I've talked to you. Love you, man. I miss you. I hope you're doing well. Yeah. All right. And Nicholas wrote, can you elaborate on why banks are safer to use as brokerages? I was considering public, so I can have all my different investments in one place, like ETFs, bonds, crypto, Roth, etc. Good idea. Yeah. So what I would say is banks are too big to fail, as we saw in 2008. Other brokerage firms are not. I don't think the U.S. government would rescue Robinhood, but I think they would rescue Bank of America or J.P. Morgan or Goldman. Yeah. Cool. All right. Great. So keep typing your questions. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you a video about billions that also discusses, how criminals made money right before 9/11. And also discusses my 9/11 story, where I was in New York City, what I saw, and what we ultimately did. And please keep typing your questions, but check this video out. Thanks.
September 11, 2001. A plane crashes into the North Tower. Everyone you worked with is dead, while you sit back in your chair with a smile on your face, making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Let's talk about finance lessons from the 8th episode of Billions, based on my work experience at Goldman Sachs in New York City, and based on my work experience at the top hedge funds in the world. Now, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and stick around, because at the end of this video, I'm going to grade the episode for Wall Street realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. 3 key topics in this episode that we will discuss are: number 1, how Bobby made $750 million on 9/11, and how shady investors made a fortune betting against the U.S. airlines right before 9/11. And separately, I'll very quickly discuss my experience working at Goldman Sachs in New York City on 9/11 and the aftermath. The second topic is Bobby's creation of a panic room at his office, and why so many billionaires in the finance sector like Peter Thiel and top hedge fund manager in history named Julian Robertson create either their own panic rooms or bunkers. Or what they do is they buy land in New Zealand just in case democracy fails in the United States, and also to survive an unlikely nuclear apocalypse. Topic 3 is the government investigation of Bobby Axelrod's portfolio manager, Donnie, and the genius twist at the end of episode 8. Topic 1. In this episode, a reporter publishes a story on how Bobby made $750 million on 9/11, which of course is another public relations disaster for Axe.
Bobby Axelrod may have made much of his considerable fortune by preying on aviation, hotel, and shipping companies when they were most vulnerable, shorting their stock during those early moments after the September 11th terrorist attack.
Now, on 9/11, at 9:03 a.m., the second plane crashed into the World Trade Center, and as a result, the markets in the United States were closed that day and did not reopen until September 17th. And on 9/11, when the markets were closed in the US, the European markets remained open, and hypothetically speaking, investors like Bobby could have shorted airlines and hotels and anything to do with travel in the European markets that day. It's very tough, though, to make $750 million by just shorting stocks. So he likely bought many put options on European airlines like British Airways and Lufthansa, which were down both 21% and 14% respectively that day. Now, a put is a derivative instrument that you can buy that costs a relatively small amount of money, and it can increase in value hundreds and hundreds of percent if the stock the put is based on goes down. And unlike shorting a stock, a put is a much safer way to bet against a stock, because if the stock that the put is based on goes up, then all you lose is what you paid for the put. And a short is way more dangerous because you can lose an unlimited amount of money if the stock you're short goes up, which is what caused some hedge funds to go bankrupt when they shorted stock GameStop, which was up literally more than 29 times in the month of January of 2021. Now, here are three other ways Bobby could have made money on 9/11. Number one, buying gold. Gold increased in London trading that day by about 6% as investors love to own gold when there's uncertainty. Number two, he could have bought oil, which rose just over 5% on 9/11, because there were some fears out there of the attack that was somehow linked to the Middle East, which of course was correct. And the third way Bobby could have made money on 9/11 is through shorting the US dollar, as the foreign exchange markets are very liquid. And the US dollar was down that day versus the euro, the British pound, and the yen as well. Speaking of the yen, on 9/11, I worked on the international equities trading floor at Goldman Sachs on the 49th floor of the building. This building is here actually. And many of my clients own Japanese equities, which I'll come back to in a second. Now, when the first plane hit, I looked out the window and I saw the damage done to the first tower. And we thought it was a small plane that hit, as the buildings were enormous. So I did a sign of the cross, and then I remained in my chair. Then after the second plane hit, of course, we evacuated. And what we did was we walked down 49 floors, and I took my team to Battery Park, as you can see here, and we prayed and we hid behind a fence, as we thought that the buildings would actually fall this way towards us, and everybody would get pushed into the Hudson River. Then we watched the tower collapse onto itself, and then the smoke blew south, so we couldn't see anything for hours. And what we did was we stayed in the park hiding. And every now and then, we would hear many more airplanes, and people screamed as we all thought it was more attacks. And eventually we saw an opening in the sky, and it was the Air Force, and people cheered. It was terrible that day. Now, the only communication devices that worked that day were Blackberries. So what I did was I borrowed one from a stranger, and I texted my family that lived by the largest airport beside Toronto. And I warned them to stay away from the airport, as we heard that all flights were being sent directly to Canada. And that night at my house in New York City on the Upper East Side, I received many Hotmail emails and MSN Messenger messages from my Goldman Sachs clients asking me to liquidate their holdings in the Japanese markets because the markets were open that night in Japan. And so what I had to do is I had to set up a trading floor at my home using Hotmail. And one of my clients named Naoka Kushitani, God bless her, she worked for a fiduciary. She passed away that day as she worked in one of the floors of the tower. God bless her. And as you can see right here, finance company Cantor Fitzgerald lost 658 employees that day. And Hank Paulson, who was the CEO of Goldman Sachs at that point in time, sent a really nice reassuring voicemail to all of us that day. And here, if we go to the Wayback Machine website, we can see Goldman's reaction that day. And if you search for other web pages from other companies in September 2001 on this website here, you'll see similar reactions. Now, when we returned to work on the trading floor on September 17th, what I did was this. I opened my Bloomberg terminal, and I was really curious about the put option activity on the major US airlines a couple of days before 9/11. So what I did was I typed OMON, which is Option Monitor, on Bloomberg. and I saw that the put volume on the US airlines before 9/11 was at an all-time high. This means that somebody knew and profited immensely from the 9/11 attacks. Now, separately, Bobby Axelrod's fictitious firm that he was a member of lost most of their employees that day. And the reason why Bobby was not at work that day is because of this.
Tell me.
The reason Axe wasn't in the towers on 9/11 with the rest of his company was because he was at his attorney's office going over his severance package.
So Bobby was being let go, but he was still at his firm on 9/11. And he was let go because of his shady trades. And since most employees died in his firm that day, nobody mentioned the fact that he was being let go. And here's what he has to say about his trades on 9/11.
I'm not proud. It was before anyone knew for sure it was terrorism. I just saw an opportunity to make $750 million in a day.
Now, on September 17th, the markets reopened, and the Dow dropped 7% that day, which was a catalyst to push the U.S. economy into a recession. And other U.S. markets fell much more, which led to a $1.4 trillion loss in market capitalization. Now, the Dow dropped less than the S&P 500 because investors were more inclined then to own large-cap Dow 30 components, which have much more revenue exposure overseas. And because these larger Dow 30 components have higher dividend yields, so they're safer investments, relatively speaking. Now, when companies reported their Q3 earnings in the September quarter of 2001, many of them took very large charges in an effort to kitchen sink the financials, meaning they reported awful earnings and they took massive charges because everybody else was expected to do so at that point in time. Now, discussing 9/11 in a television show based on finance in New York City is, of course, a very sensitive topic. And the writers did a superb job of showing patriotism in this episode through patriotic ties, as well as showing the Twin Towers in this photograph pretty close to an American flag on the wall there. And notice the mention of bin Laden in this scene right here. Topic 2. Bobby becomes increasingly paranoid about who is loyal to him. And as a result, he sets up a panic room at work. Now, a lot of billionaires in finance take this to the next level, as they make panic rooms at their offices and more often in their homes in New York City in their townhouses. Like we see right here, actually, with this Tribeca located house in New York City that has a 6,500 square foot panic room. And these panic rooms have bulletproof walls, ceilings, and floors. And since the 1980s, all US embassies have panic rooms. And billionaires in finance really take it to the next level, though, as Julian Robertson, who founded the most influential hedge fund ever called Tiger, purchased a massive place in New Zealand at the peak of the Cold War, just in case there was a nuclear war, as New Zealand would be relatively insulated from nuclear fallout perspective. Quick side note, many of the top hedge funds in the world were founded by former Tiger employees, meaning that they worked for Julian Robertson. And we refer to these funds as Tiger Cubs. And they include Chase Coleman's Tiger Global, as well as Maverick, Lone Pine, as well as Viking. Now, these hedge funds are very successful because they learned from Julian Robertson to be very long-term focused and not day traders. And these Tiger Cubs often put on 1 to 3 year positions on the long and short sides of their portfolios. Let's get back to the New Zealand topic, though. Venture capitalist Peter Thiel, who was the first notable investor in Facebook and Palantir, got his U.S. citizenship in New Zealand as well. And many U.S. billionaires bought places in New Zealand after the 2016 election and also given the insurgency on January 6 of 2021. And Sam Altman, who is the head of OpenAI, has an agreement with his friend Peter Thiel that if a nuclear war or a virus breaks out, or if an AI-based disaster takes place that threatens humanity, then he will fly with Peter Thiel on a private jet to Thiel's property in New Zealand. And in the 2 days after the 2016 election, American billionaires looking into getting New Zealand citizenship increased materially. And Reid Hoffman, who is the co-founder of LinkedIn, who also worked with Peter Thiel at PayPal, even said that saying you're buying a place in New Zealand is kind of a wink, wink, say no more. And even Mark Zuckerberg, after buying and combining these 5 houses in Palo Alto, after he combined all 5, apparently he built a massive panic room underground. Topic 3. Axe is paranoid because he knows that somebody in his firm is partnering with the government to get him arrested for insider information. And it might be Donnie or somebody else.
Everything you do will be picked apart until I discover who is on your level and who's whistling.
Now, Axe thinks the traitor might actually be Donnie.
Have you ever met anybody that worked at the FBI? I mean, just socially.
No, I don't think so.
Or maybe it's this portfolio manager here named Pouch who had insider information in Crosscode Trucking back in episode 4 when I explained how a short works.
What about that cross-code trucking play, Pouch? You still have a problem with it?
Hey, I made my peace with that.
Now, Bobby ultimately concludes that the traitor is Pouch and not Donnie, so he lets Pouch go.
You're fired. You got nailed by the SEC, so you tried to sell me out? You wearing a wire right now?
No.
It's a really interesting twist, though. And maybe the real informant is Donnie? We don't know yet, though.
I'm doubting you're even for real. You need evidence. Bobby Axelrod trading material non-public information. Get it done!
Wait a second. If the real informant is Donnie and not Pouch, then why did Axe let Pouch go? And why did Pouch get investigated by the SEC? Because the government found out that Axe was aware that there was a mole in his company. And the government spent so much time and money making Donnie turn against Axe. And the government knows that they can arrest Axe with Donnie's cooperation. And as a result, the government set up a meeting with Pouch and a paper trail so that Axe would find out and Axe would fire Pouch and not Donnie. But Axe is a master chess player and the quintessential master of game theory. So he was definitely aware of all of this, and then the ending scene was brilliant as this happened.
I knew what was going on. We had to put on a show, but it still rattled my nerves.
That was the only way I could convince Rhodes you were legit.
It turns out Donnie is a double agent and is working with Bobby to mislead the government investigation. Let's talk about grading of this episode for Wall Street Realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. This episode accurately explained how Axe could have generated a positive return on 9/11 by betting against airlines and other securities. Although the writers should have discussed how Bobby used options, meaning puts, as well in making $750 million that quickly because it's unlikely to make that much money that fast without using options. And the episode also accurately showed Axe's paranoia in creating a panic room, which many billionaires in the hedge fund industry now have. Also, I love the drama with Donnie partnering with Axe as well, although it seemed a little bit far-fetched that Axe or any hedge fund billionaire would have such great intel when it comes to government investigations. As a result, I'm going to give this episode a hold rating. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon in our next reaction video when we react to episode 9. Thank you. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Every Friday at 9 a.m. I drop a new vlog. I also did a vlog on business lessons from the movie Wolf of Wall Street, the movie Wall Street as well. It's a fun way to teach. Okay. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff. My marketing person always tells me to remind you guys to do that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Mr. Vicky wrote, "It's my dream to start a hedge fund. What are the requirements to start a hedge fund?" Yeah, there's a lot of legal requirements. So I would definitely talk to a securities lawyer and ask them for advice. So if you're in the United States, for example, there's a lot of FINRA requirements, and these laws change every now and then as well. And it might be to write certain exams. Series 363, 7, I'm not even sure. I wrote them all years ago. They'll help you out. Also, what's required is a lot of legal documentation to the extent that you provide an investment offering memorandum that your lawyer will create, as well as subscription documents so that you can only take accredited investors, etc. Yeah, and there might be other rules and regulations, yeah, but you got to talk to them. And when you start a hedge fund, you'll probably deal with a prime brokerage firm like a Goldman Sachs, a BTIG, etc. And they'll help you as well to understand the regulations. Obviously, always get your own lawyer, but your service providers will help you. Now, in terms of getting up and running, investors want to see that you have a lot of pieces in place. They want to see that you've got employees, you've got a fund administrator, an auditor, a lawyer, a prime broker, the custodial service, etc. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up. And there's a lot more to it as well in terms of investment process, what to put in your investor slides. I can actually help you with your slides if you want. If you want, you can sign up for my Diamond program, or at least set up a call with me to discuss joining the Diamond program at that link there. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Nicholas wrote, is the 100 minus age strategy for bonds and stock allocation still wise, considering they've been more correlated these past years? I think so. So what that refers to, for those of you not familiar with it, is from a private wealth management perspective. An old school risk management methodology was to think about this. Take the number 100 minus your age. And for example, if you're 75, 100 minus 75 is 25. That means that 25% of your investments can be in riskier investments and 75% in lower risk investments, because you don't have that much time to get that money back as you get older. This is old school though, because there are people on this call that I believe will live to 150. So if you're 20 years old, 100 minus 20 is 80. That means 80% of your investments can be in growth investments and 20% in less risky investments. Now, when I say less risky, it doesn't have to just be bonds. It can be, stocks with low betas, large caps that have high dividend yields that do well even in recessions, like Campbell's Soup, ticker CPB. Soup is good food. Yeah. Or when it comes to bonds, it can be, AAA rated bonds or that sort of thing. Yeah. Never buy anything that's below A level. That's junk bond territory, or the politically correct term for that these days is high yield. Okay. All right. Next up, Jose wrote, can you provide insights into Primerica's recent financial performance, including any notable trends in revenue, earnings, or market share? And then you provide me the ticker. Yeah, it's tough for me to do that in a short amount of time. What I recommend doing is sign up for my MBA program and then go to this lecture here that covers this, and create your own income statement and auditor red flags, technical analysis, and all that great stuff in here. And if you're in the Diamond program, which you can learn about right here, I can actually help you create those as well. Yeah. But I never give investor advice. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Richard wrote, that was cool. And I thank God for saving your life on that day. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. My parents were really worried. Yeah. And I remember I had to use MSN Messenger, I think, to let them know I was okay. Yeah. But there was a guy who worked at Goldman. His name was Scott Griffith. I never really thought about this, but he was the only guy that ran towards the buildings to say, let's go help people. God bless Scott. Yeah. Yeah. And he actually shared the same client with me, Nauka Kushtani. Yeah. Okay. But it was eerie, man. I remember you could smell the asbestos in the air for ages, and it was it was brutal. Yeah. And then another plane crashed. I think it was in November of that year, but nobody talked about it. Like, the media never covered it. You can always do a search, but I think it crashed in maybe it was Queens. I can't remember. Yeah, it's sad. I think the plane was going to the Dominican and everybody passed away. Yeah. All right. And then Radu wrote, is a Platinum Zoom call in a bit over 1 hour now? Yeah, so the weekly 2-hour call for Platinum and Gold students is at 11:20 Pacific time. And it's a 2-hour call using the same Zoom address you used before. It'd be great to see you, great to catch up. And for anybody that has taken or will take the MBA program, Gold or Platinum students, you have lifetime access to that weekly call, which is 2 hours every Thursday. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then Manas wrote, what AI startup might succeed, like the general masses from your perspective? Yeah, I'll give you a great idea on how to do research in this area. So as I mentioned earlier today, the number one venture capital firm on the planet is Sequoia. And I recommend going to their website sequoiacap.com, and they've got this. I guess they participated in the Reddit IPO. They've got this thing here called Generative AI's Act, and what you can do on this link, go to sequoiacap.com, is scroll down, and you'll see this chart right here. And this here, and they update this every now and then. They've done the research for you. So this basically is all the best companies in AI in each sector. They're not all pure plays, obviously. But you got consumer here. You've got enterprise here. For example, Glean is an AI company that kind of acts like Google in your corporate network to the extent that you can do searches and index everything from Slack, Dropbox, etc., and use AI on top of it. And then if you're really techie, you can scroll down here and then look at the infrastructure stack as well. You know, which companies are market leaders in large language models here, analytics, etc. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Renbeer is asking about what's one level below a hedge fund that is less regulated. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And the laws would definitely be different for you versus the United States as you're in Mauritius. Yeah. Yeah. I would just talk to a local lawyer. Yeah. Okay. You wrote, Manas wrote, I want to ask a very tough question. Sure. If we build something, maybe a tool or a medicine that's all approved, and that would make you live forever, would you do it, ignore prices or other issues? Dude, I'm a biohacker. So I take, like, behind the scenes with me, and I'm sure what I do, part of it is placebo. I take a ton of vitamins every day. And herbs as well. So I biohack a lot. For example, this one right here, I had my DNA sequence years ago. And the DNA sequence said there's a 67% probability I'm going to get AMD or age-related macular degeneration, meaning my eyesight will go down in my 60s. And I asked my mom about it. She's like, oh my God, your grandpa had that. So I went to my eye doctor. My eyes are good. And he told me to take this relatively benign zinc substance. Do your own research first. Obviously, I'm not going to recommend anything right now, but definitely anything that's life extension related for sure, man. I want to teach forever. Yeah. It'll also give me more breathing room so I can build my 1,000 schools in my lifetime. Yeah. And other things I do is every single Sunday, as I've probably told you guys before, I get a ton of organic food shipped to my house from Whole Foods, sorry. And I make 7 of these. It's greatest hits of every antioxidant you can think of. And this gives me a lot more energy. It's got kale in it, raw ginger root, tons of other stuff, even mushroom extract. Not shrooms. I don't shroom anymore. I don't shroom any less. I try to drink a lot of water. Right now, it's close to 11. I'm about an hour behind schedule as well. Also, vodka looks nice in this too. Yeah. Other things I do from a biohacking perspective is I walk all day long. And I've got a treadmill below me right now and a desk that goes up and down. And so when you guys are watching that video, the Billions video, I was getting my steps in. And I try to get 30,000 steps a day. And the reason I do this is because I realized when I was younger, when I used to study, I would get up an hour early. And that 1 hour of studying in the morning was way more better than 10 hours of studying at night. And so I thought to myself, how can I trick my brain to think I just woke up? And the way you do that is through exercise. So I work 15-hour days, but I accomplish 10 times more every day. So I feel like I get 150 hours worth of work done per day when I get my 30,000 steps doing this. And I don't have a job, I have a passion. I love doing what I'm doing. I don't work on Sundays though. As much as I want to, Sunday's a day for God, church, and family. Yeah. So anyway, this is one of my mini hacks. So yes, I would look into that drug, whatever drug that might be. Yeah, for sure. And I think all you got to do is make it another 20 years. And given the explosion in innovation and all of the trillions of dollars that's going into startups these days, especially here in South San Francisco, the biotech capital of the United States. And post the pandemic, a lot of money is going to the sector. I think all you got to do is make another 20 years. And then you'll be able to live for an extra 100 years or whatever it is with all the innovation we're seeing, especially with AI as well. It's scary, but in a good way. Okay. Okay. Okay, and I hope I didn't miss any questions here. And for those of you in the Silver MBA program, I do my weekly call starting in 10 minutes. It's a 1-hour Zoom. And what you can do is just go to the first lecture of the curriculum to be able to access the link for the 1-hour Zoom from 10 to 11. Yeah. Okay. And then Ryan wrote, hey, Chris, any guidance on the industry's best practices for calculating commission for sales and pre-sales? Should it be 80-20? It all depends on the product. Like if it's a software product, you can obviously give away a lot more, right? And so quota-carrying software sales reps here in the Bay Area, I have friends that make millions of dollars a year. And what happens is they're given a certain quota, and that quota can either be based on geography or vertical, like financial services or healthcare, or named accounts, meaning big customers like Cisco, for example. And they're given a certain amount that they have to have quota-wise. And if they beat that quota, then any amount they make above the quota, they get a higher percent, right? So instead of getting 10% cut, they might get 20% cut. So accelerator kicks in. And so it all depends on the product. If you're in the retail sector, obviously you can't do that because you got razor thin profit margins. So it all depends on the sector. Yeah. But I'm a big believer in setting up a meritocracy to the extent that you eat what you kill, so that anybody that sells can get unlimited compensation. And a lot of people that work in sales make more than, senior vice presidents and even the CEO in some cases. Yeah. Everybody wins. Everybody's got to be focused on growing the top line. And then Mr. Vicky wrote, Chris, I love your work. You're the best one. Thank you. And God bless you. Appreciate that. Manas wrote, would you like to be immortal? If not immortal, would you like to add 20 years to your life or something? And he wrote, my heart went out for that scene, by the way. I wasn't even born back then. 9/11. God, yeah. Makes me feel old. Yeah. The videos were so frightening. My heart sank for America and beautiful American people. Loved it all. Yeah, it was awful. Yeah. I still can't believe it happened, man. And as much as people are critical of the government, I got to say that the Bush administration and the Obama administration and the Trump administration and the Biden administration have done a damn good job. Because I'm sure there were other incidents that never occurred. Yeah. Okay. All right, and then I got to wrap this up in a second. Steve wrote, how does one find a lawyer you can trust and is knowledgeable? Yeah, I have so many good lawyer jokes. I can't do that or I'll be canceled. Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like finding an accountant. And I don't ever recommend that you do your own taxes. Always get an accountant. And there's really not a great repository for accountants. There's no Yelp for accountants. So you always talk to a buddy of yours or somebody successful, an aunt or an uncle, and ask them for a recommendation on an accountant. Same thing with a lawyer. However, as a place to start, what you can always do, and this is what I've done and I do, is you can use LegalZoom.com. And if you're in Canada, use LegalZoom.ca. If you're not in North America, do a search on what is the equivalent in my country of LegalZoom.com. And make sure they're reputable, obviously. But it's a way to get cheap access to legal services. Yeah. So I would try that. I go to LegalZoom. Yeah. Yeah, they've been great to me. Yeah. But if you want something much more specific, you might not be able to use LegalZoom, or you can start with them and then build a relationship with a lawyer outside of it, if they allow that. Yeah. Okay. And then Manas wrote, thank you for everything, my mentor. God bless you all forever. God bless you more, brother. Great to see you. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote, maybe a guy like Peter Thiel wants to live forever. Yeah, there's a lot of billionaires here in the Bay Area that do a lot of really crazy and different things to try to extend their life. Yeah. But I'm passionate about that as well. Yeah. All right. That is my alarm to wrap this up. I see there's more questions. Please save them for next week, Or what you can do is you can join my MBA degree program, Silver, Gold, or Platinum. Find out more at this link here and ask me in office hours over the next couple hours. Thank you all. God bless you. And I will see you next week and every week. Click like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. God bless you. This is a fun call. Thank you.